Charles Margerison and Dick McCann developed one of the leading tools to help managers with team performance: the Team Management Wheel. When you want your team to perform well, there are two approaches you can take. First, you can select your team well, and secondly, you can manage them effectively. There are many tools to help us to understand how to manage people well. There are fewer tools to help us to select our team effectively. Of these, perhaps the best known is the Belbin team roles model. But Belbin isn't the only game in town. Margerison and McCann have developed an alternative. Together, Margerison and McCann have developed a wide range of interconnected models. There's too much work to attempt to describe them all here. They've done work on workplace values, influencing skills, and on opportunities and obstacles. But it's their most widely used model that interests us here, the Team Management Wheel, and some of the ideas around it. And that's where we need to start, because before we can understand the Team Management Wheel, we need to understand their types of work wheel. In interviews with over 300 managers, they found that individual performance could be linked to the manager's execution of activities that fall within 8 roles. The first role is that of advising, which largely consists of gathering, interpreting, and sharing information. The second role is innovation. This is about creating and experimenting with new ideas. Next is the role of promoting. This is about exploring and presenting and advocating for new opportunities. Fourth, we have developing. Developing is about assessing and testing new approaches and new ways of doing things. Organizing is about establishing and implementing ways of doing work and making things happen. Producing is about taking those processes and delivering real outputs. Inspecting is about controlling and auditing those processes and the outputs they produce. And finally, we have maintaining, which is about upholding and safeguarding the standards and the processes that we have within the organisation. Margerison and McCann's conclusion was that each job would have a different balance of functions from among those 8, and not surprisingly, an employee would perform well if they had the right balance of skills to match the functions that were needed to perform the job. They presented their work in their trademarked types of work wheel, which I'm presenting here briefly for educational purposes. And they suggested that every job would have a small number of critical work functions, and the performance of these functions makes the difference between good and poor job performance. Let's take a couple of examples. In finance and accounting, we might expect that critical work functions include organising, producing, and inspecting. But in design jobs and research and development roles, we're far more likely to find critical work functions include things like advising, innovating, and developing. Now, it's not hard to see where all this is going when we start to move over to team roles. Margerison and McCann suggested that we all have role preferences, team roles that we are more likely to enjoy performing. When people's work practices match their critical work functions, they're more likely to enjoy the work they're doing, be happier in their jobs, and to be more effective. So, let's take a brief look at the 8 team role preferences. The reporter-advisor role is supportive. It's a role that enjoys collecting and sharing information. To be effective in the role, you need to be both knowledgeable and flexible. The creator-innovator role is one that has to be imaginative and creative and is able to embrace complexity, uncertainty, and ambiguity. This is a role where people enjoy researching new ideas. The explorer-promoter role enjoys exploring possibilities and looking for new opportunities, and then, crucially, selling them to their colleagues. people who like this role tend to be persuasive. They tend to be fast thinkers and therefore easily bored. The assessor-developer role has to be analytical and objective, highly rational but enjoying ideas. They like developing and testing out new opportunities and new approaches and finding ways to make them work. The thruster organizer is highly results focused. They like to set up systems and drive the team forward, and they like to see results. They too are analytical, but they are quick to make decisions, sometimes relying almost entirely on their intuition. The concluder producer is highly practical. They enjoy systematic planning and work processes. They take pride in efficiency, effectiveness, and the quality of outputs. The controller inspector is also highly focused on quality, but also on controlling the detailed aspects of the work. They're good at creating, checking, and enforcing standards, but they're less skilled at informal activities like influencing and persuasion. And finally, the upholder maintainer values standards. They will uphold those standards and the values around them. As a result, they can be conservative in times of change, but they do have a strong sense of purpose and a strong anchor to a value set. In developing their role preferences, Margerison and McCann were highly influenced by Carl Jung's archetypes, and therefore their ideas will resonate with anyone who is familiar with the widely used Myers-Briggs type indicator, a work-based psychometric test. They looked at 4 measures for how people approach the work they do. They looked at how people prefer to relate to other people, relationships, at how they like to gather and use information, how they prefer to make decisions, and how they organise both themselves and others. And this led them to their RIDO scales, standing for relationships, information, decisions, and organisation. They found that these scales had a strong relationship with their types of work. Like the types of work wheel, Margerison and McCann presented their team role preferences as the team management wheel. And once again, I'm going to show it briefly for educational purposes. At the centre of the wheel, you'll see what Margerison and McCann called the linker role. If a team is to work well together, someone needs to coordinate them. And that is the linker role, the 9th of the 8 Margerison and McCann roles. Consequently, it's important for the team leader to have high levels of linker role skills, and they identified 13 of them. 6 people skills, 5 task skills, and 2 additional leadership skills which are valuable if the linker is to be the team leader. These, however, are subject to another model which is outside of our scope, the linking leader model. Margerison and McCann offers a more complex, more subtle, and less widely known alternative to the widely used Belbin team role profiles. So, if you're interested in learning how team members contribute to a team and how the team performs as a whole, then studying this model can give you additional insights. Please do give us a like if you've enjoyed this video. There'll be loads more great management courses content to come, so please do subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of it. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one, and in the meantime, keep learning.